And it's time once again for another episode of
The Horror Guys!
Yay! With the Horror Weekly Podcast.
I am Kevin.
I am Brian.
And we're going to talk about new movies.
Yeah,
Very new.
We got a bunch of basically smaller indie movies this week, which is kind of fun.
Yep,
kind of different.
5 indies and 1 mainstream, but they're all new. Brand spanking new.
Yeah, normally with our setup, we put the 5 short films on Horror Guys and 5 long movies on Horror Weekly. Mm-hmm. Unless they're indie films, in which case they go both places to give them a little more exposure.
Nice.
Which is good for those films. It's going to be a shorter podcast, because that's all we had this week was indie films.
Then we're just going to give you a little taste here and not completely spoil them.
Yeah, these are all very new releases. We did the reviews on the days they came out. So, yeah, these have been out for less than a week at this point. So, you probably haven't seen them, so we're not going to spoil any of these.
Except for, one of them is a mainstream.
One of them's mainstream, but it's still fairly recent. We're not going to spoil it either.
Very new.
So if you don't like your spoilers, this is going to be a safe spot for you.
We'll just give you a little taste and a little idea of whether they're worth checking out.
Yeah.
And you can read further on our stuff.
Yeah, and if you want to read further on our stuff, just go over to horrorweekly.com and you can read the full spoilery reviews. Tells the entire everything that happens, beginning to end, with the middle, and everything else, along with our opinions, of course.
And you can see them yourself and then let us know what you think, too.
Yeah, you can always comment. Yeah, we don't get many comments on our site, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, you can always drop us an email at horrorguys.com and let us know what you think about anything, about our podcast or newsletter or websites or any of our many books. Where could they find those books, you say? HorrorGuysShop.com?
Well, I bet they could.
They could. Subtle, huh?
Uh-huh.
And, of course, our main thing is our monthly print magazine, HorrorMonthly.com. September is out, and it is the biggest, thickest issue yet, because all those shorts are in there this month.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nice one. Yeah, it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, what do we have this week?
Are we going to list them all, or are we going to go one at a time? Let's just list them all. We got The Deliverance is the more mainstream one.
No, not that one.
There's not a single banjo in that movie. Yeah.
You know, every time I've seen anybody mention it, they call it I just saw Deliverance, and
that's what people think of.
It's not Deliverance.
It's not. It's The Deliverance. Yeah. And then we got Clawfoot, as in a bathtub, and Subservience. Could be some servants and slavery issues going on there. The Zombie Wedding.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
Thoroughly silly, yeah. Voice of Shadows, which was kind of chilling and creepy. And a documentary kind of film about cryptids on the Trail of Bigfoot, the Ancients.
I bet they find him and interview him.
Yeah, finally. Or he shows up and rips someone's arm off.
Oh, that'd be good, too. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's one of those productions by Small Town Monsters folks, and they do mighty fine work.
Yeah, we have done a bunch of their movies, and they're all very consistently good. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised more people aren't doing, cryptid documentaries.
They'd have a hard time keeping up with as good as these are.
They don't send them to us.
They don't send them to
Filmmakers, send us your screeners. We would be happy to see them.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, where are we going to start this week?
We should start with Clawfoot.
That just sounds like a monster, doesn't it?
Start with a nice soothing bath. Yeah.
Clawfoot, 2024, directed by Michael Day, written by April Wolfe. Stars Francesca Eastwood, Clint Eastwood's daughter. Milo Gibson. Mel Gibson's son. And Olivia Culpo, who's not related to anybody as far as I know.
Not famous. Not like the other two.
Hour and 27 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler-free what happens.
Well, right from the beginning, it feels like more is going on than what we see. And it's fun to see how things move along as we do find out what's what. In general, it's a very fun movie with lots of humor. It gets crazier as it goes along. But there's the gore factor and the horror factor, too. So it's very funny, very dark. As we mentioned, 2 kids of famous actors. They really prove they can do stuff on their own merits. I thought they were both really good. The cast and everything else is very good. We liked it a lot.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, again, we're not going to spoil it, but
just a taste.
The first few minutes, Janet looks at herself in the mirror as she puts on makeup. We then get establishing shots around her house as she cleans and does housework.
And right off the bat, I was thinking, that doesn't seem right. She's clearly very affluent.
Very wealthy, yes.
And very well kept. And
She's running the
doing this
vacuum
stuff
and doing
herself.
this. Yeah,
Why?
all those rich people have people to do that for you.
Something's not right there. Yeah.
Well, a man comes to the door and says he has a work order to update the bathroom, but she doesn't know anything about it. Her husband ordered it. Leo offers to call her husband to straighten out the misunderstanding, but he only gets a voicemail. He's pushy, but she doesn't demand that he leaves. She lets him in, and the credits roll. All right, well, it's not too unusual yet.
Yeah, seems okay.
Leo gets to work, and Janet soon finds him walking around the bedroom with his shirt off, along with his assistant, Sammy.
Well, that ain't normal.
He puts on his shirt and helps her cook lunch, which also ain't normal. He keeps commenting on her house, her money, her absent husband, and everything else that's inappropriate and personal.
Instead of actually doing the work.
She imagines knocking him out, but he doesn't do it. And there's several times in this movie where she has these little fantasy sequences.
And you think, oh, she finally acted. And then, nope, that was just a fantasy again.
Janet's friend Tasha comes over with her kid Darren in tow. And Tasha's a lawyer, and she knows creepy stuff about her murderer clientele. Janet doesn't know where her husband Evan went. He left this morning and didn't go to work because his car is still in the garage. Leo takes Evan's violin out of the closet and starts playing. She demands that he leave, but he refuses. When she threatens to call the police, he laughs. Leo and Sammy then take a break for lunch, and she fantasizes about killing him again, twice. Evan still isn't answering his phone, and she starts to get annoyed. And we'll stop here. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I'm like, why doesn't she call the police? She doesn't want the guy in the house. He won't leave. Why not?
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, everybody's talking about See No Evil this week.
Uh-huh.
And the main thing about the original one was the people were just too polite to call the bad guys out on their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this started looking like the same kind of thing. Why isn't she being more forceful with this guy?
Well,
it does all make sense
explained.
Eventually, and it's not because she's too polite.
No, things are explained, which I liked. Yeah.
All right, well, as we said before, the two main characters are famous Nepo babies.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we could say that.
We can.
The gaslighting just goes on for far too long to be believable. Anyone with any sense would have called the police, had them trespassed, and just eaten the lost deposit on the bathtub work. We figured there had to be some reason she didn't do that. Something like, she'd killed her husband earlier or something. But that's not exactly what happened.
Right, yeah.
It's got some funny bits. It's definitely a dark comedy, but it's really not a joke a minute until the last half hour or so, and then it gets pretty crazy. Yeah, the first half hour was pretty serious, which is why I was like, why are these people acting like this?
And then you find out.
Yeah, the acting is good all around, and it all looks very good. We liked it.
Yeah. Nepo Baby is okay if they're actually good. In a case like this.
Sometimes it is. These people have been raised around, movies and stuff. They know what they're doing.
It clearly rubbed off, yeah. Yeah, I thought everything about it from the cast to the
And this was
effects.
neither of them's first movie.
No.
They've done other things.
Yeah, the cast to the effects, everything was well put together. It was a good one, for sure.
Yeah.
I might go with this as my favorite of the week.
Okay. I'm undecided yet. We'll get to my pick at the end there.
Okay.
And let's see. Clawfoot is...
Is it available to watch for folks?
Looks like you can watch it on Apple TV Plus.
Okay, good.
I don't think it's free, though.
Okay.
But it's out. It's available. What next?
Well, next we got A Zombie Wedding.
Directed by Micah Kahn. Written by Greg D'Alessandro. Stars Donald Chang, Deepti Menon, Heather Matarazzo, Shobin Fallon Hogan, and Sherry O'Terry. Oh my.
Those names are hard to pronounce.
A lot of names I didn't recognize, but faces that you're like, oh yeah, they're from that one thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hour and 39 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free.
What happened?
It was inspired by an interactive play experience, and knowing that, you can see how that might work. It's very over the top in humor and silliness, which would appeal to some. I liked it quite a bit. Kevin thought it was a bit too much.
Yeah, I didn't dig it that much.
Okay, you're the theater guy. What the heck is an interactive play experience?
Well, they've done this with there's various weddings, and there'll be like a dinner party thing where you show up. The actors know their characters with a general storyline and general lines.
You're talking about real actors, though.
Real actors.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll show up, and like it'll be a wedding, and you're a guest at the wedding. And you mingle among these actors. They're actually there with you in a various capacity. So like the bride and the groom are walking among the guests, and they're fighting, and Aunt Lydia is, fighting with Uncle George, and you as a guest are in the middle of it. And sometimes, like for dinner ones, you'll be assigned a character or simple lines or simple things to do as part of the storyline too. But it's not like a theater experience where you sit in the audience and the actors are up on stage. You're actually among the actors.
I think that sounds very
it can
annoying.
It can be fun.
I would hate this.
No, I've gone to a couple of them. Yeah.
Okay, well, what's the movie? What's going on here?
Well, we open on Zach and Ashley's wedding, but the place is crawling with misbehaving zombies, and credits roll. So we get a flashback.
Taste, yes.
Yeah. We hear the editor of the Weekly World News talking about his crazy headlines. He says the best of all of them was the first zombie wedding, and he tells the story. So it's kind of a flashback sort of thing. Ashley gives a presentation to the mayor, and she's very nervous. One guy there, Coco, has an unreasonable crush on her, but she's into Zach. After a date, Zach sees a guy dressed like a zombie and mocks him since Halloween is a month away. He's doing it way too early. We are told that the local mailman was patient zero of the zombie virus. Well, the pair go to the cemetery, where they meet a very weird preacher, and while there, Zach proposes to Ashley.
I'm like, that preacher's a zombie already, isn't he?
No, he's just
weird.
Yeah, uh-huh. And that was the guy from Walking Dead, wasn't it?
Yes, he was the one-eyed preacher from The Walking
preacher
Dead.
From The Walking Dead, yeah.
He's been other things, too.
Oh, yeah. There's a full choir in the cemetery at night. The zombie follows them to the engagement party. Well, the following morning, both sets of parents talk about who's in charge of that wedding. Her father wants the wedding to be at the Elks Club. No one else wants that. The back and forth between the parents goes on for a while as stuck-up Cindy, Zach's mom, picks on Buddy Bob and Betty, Ashley's hillbilly parents. So, and this is, the taste of, what those interactive things are like. These people show up and these are their characters, and they're weird, but then they just kind of improv mostly, and with a rough storyline. But anyway, meanwhile, at the Weekly World News, a report says that the zombie virus is being spread by bedbugs. A lot of people don't even seem to notice that the whole outbreak is happening, Zach being one of them. Well, there's zombie control officers who tell a bunch of zombies about getting free brain substitutes. But the zombies think there are tracking devices in the fake brains.
Well, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. The zombies break into where the happy couple is partying with their friends and attack. So the zombies are not totally mindless here. They're driven by the compulsion of, eating brains, but they're rational, and for some reason they dress very colorfully.
I love the way the zombies dress.
As soon as they become zombies, they're like clowns in the clothing they're wearing. Well, should we stop there?
You want one more.
Okay. Zach gets bitten, and Ashley's parents say the wedding needs to be canceled. Well, Ashley goes to see Zach, and he's chained to the wall in his mother's house. He eats his mother's brain, but says he'd never hurt Ashley, and they talk it out, and they decide to go ahead with the wedding.
Hilarity ensues.
It's going to be a zombie wedding.
It is, yeah.
Because these zombies just cannot resist brains.
No.
Yeah, despite being able to talk and being somewhat rational.
They're not mindless, but they don't have a lot of self-control.
They have a real compulsion, yeah.
Well, this was based on a 2015 interactive play. Apparently, once you become a zombie, you have to dress like a clown in tie-dye, leopard prints, and colorful robes. All of them do it.
Yeah.
The zombie makeup is unique. It's more like shiny grease paint than anything else. It's kind of cheap looking, but we got used to it pretty quickly since it is consistent between all the zombie characters. And going into this, I figured this was going to be a really... The trailer shows this, and it really looks cheap and crappy in the trailer. Like, I don't want to see zombies that look like that. That looks terrible.
But it's appropriate.
But you get used to it real fast.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think they could have dropped all the newspaper and reporter stuff. The story ground to a halt every time the Weekly World News stuff came up. It's got a weird variety of celebrity cameos, but enough that every once in a while you can recognize somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the mayor, he always plays a gangster. He was in The Sopranos, I think. And
yeah, I think so.
what is the point of his character? He didn't do anything, but he was there.
Shows up to be one of the weirdos, yeah.
It's a bit on the silly side, even for a comedy, but I thought it was entertaining. I liked it.
Yeah, maybe a little too much, though. I thought it was a little bit tiresome in the humor sometimes. And I did have some chuckles, but it kind of tuned out some of it. I thought it was too much, too silly, too goofy.
All right. Yeah. You're allowed.
Yeah.
Next up, Voice of Shadows, 2024. Written and directed by Nicholas Bain. Stars Guillermo Blanco, Karina Mika, B. Vang, and Martin Harris. Hour and a half. Trailer in the show notes.
I think this was one that I enjoyed more than you did.
This was subtitled?
No, this was not.
It was not. Okay,
no.
Yeah.
They're Colombian. Yeah, Colombian,
Yeah.
but it's mostly in English.
Okay.
Yeah. It starts out right out with a terrible event being told in confession and moves into strange territory quickly. And then the script does slow down a bit as things move along, but it's well cast and directed. The effects are decent. It tells an unsettling story. We thumbs up it.
We thumbs up it?
We thumbs
we
up
thumbs
it.
it up it.
We thumbs it up it. Am I correct in that assessment? I enjoyed it more than you did.
Yeah.
I thought so. I got the impression.
It's all right. We'll get to it here in a minute.
Yeah.
A man in a confession booth tells his story to the priest. He explains how his mother was raped and murdered and how he killed the man who did it. The priest doesn't respond to the story at all, and the man questions, is the priest even over there? We then cut to Emma, the man's girlfriend, sleeping in her bed that night with his sister in the next room. Credits roll.
Yeah, and it's kind of, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a dark humor to it, too. You know, he's talking I mean, he might as well
spilling his guts out, and the priest isn't even there.
It's this horrific, opening his heart, confession. And, hello? Are you there?
Well, Gabriel, the man we saw.
It's funny, but not funny. I mean, it's very serious.
Yeah.
But I found it,
Yeah, I don't think there's any humor in this one at all.
I found a kernel of dark humor in that, though. Yeah.
The Gabriel, the man we saw earlier, goes out the next morning, and his elderly neighbor, Bertie, whines about his wife taking his car keys. He's an old man in a wheelchair, maybe a little on the Alzheimer's side. The family, Gabriel, Emma, and Celeste, go to visit Milda, a strange old woman who lives alone. Milda says sometimes she can talk to dead people, like Celeste's parents. Milda's neighbor, Joseph, talks to Gabriel, and old Milda expresses how much she hates Joseph. And we think she's like being racist against him because he's a foreigner.
It's more complicated than that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Late at night, a strange man named Ernesto calls Emma. She doesn't know who he is, but he says he knows Milda. He says Milda died earlier that evening. Emma, Celeste, and Gabriel go to the funeral, and it looks like they're the only attendees. For her eulogy, Emma talks about the first time that Milda died, during a fire at the orphanage where many children were killed, but Milda was revived. So she's kind of died twice.
Okay.
Ernesto interrupts the eulogy to introduce himself. He has all the documents that they need to go over. Turns out, Emma has inherited Milda's entire estate, but there are some weird stipulations. He mentions that he and Milda were in a very exclusive club, but he doesn't explain what that is. The stipulations are that Emma has to live in that house, but under no circumstances is Gabriel allowed to live in the house. But the executor, Ernesto, says he'll look the other way if you want to let him in there anyhow. Either way, Emma wants to spend the night there. Gabriel acts terrified when she goes down into the basement. He's got a real phobia about basements. He said he buried his mother and her killer in a basement once. I'll bet he's going to wind up in that basement again before this is over.
You know it.
That night, Gabriel hears something and grabs a knife, which concerns Emma. In the morning, they plan to leave, but Ernesto comes for Emma, offering her a job at the local gallery. It's clear that he wants Emma to stay, and Gabriel finds some old books on witchcraft in the woman's house.
So there's witchery afoot.
Yeah, and old
weirdness.
dead Milda may not be as old and dead as we think.
Or at least not as dead as we think. Maybe.
Yeah. Gabriel and okay, we're done with that. Gabriel and his sister have just moved to America from a bad situation in Colombia, and they don't know all the rules of America. So when people start acting strangely, Gabriel thinks maybe it's just him not understanding, which is believable.
Yeah, I thought it was nice.
There are some places here where people just don't act normally, and
Lost
he can't tell.
It's a little bit of lost in translation there.
Plus, he did kill a man back in his country, so he's buried in his own guilt as well. The acting here I did not think was great, but it's not terrible either. Everyone acts so oddly that it's hard to tell if they're doing it on purpose or not. And I think it is that whole foreigner not understanding the culture thing. I think we both had a pretty good idea of what was going on from very early on, but it was entertaining to see how it would all play out. Honestly, I thought it started out really strong, but as it dragged on, it seemed to slow down to a snail's pace. It seemed like Gabriel was wandering around in the basement for half an hour in what should have been the climax. Yeah, the climax was a lot stretched out.
It was a little.
It was not that climactic at that point.
Well, I thought the acting was stronger than you did, especially from Guillermo Blanco in the lead and Jane Hamill, who was good at alternating between eccentric and wicked. Yeah, I liked her in the role. I think that some good direction choices saved a script that was on the slow side. I think the director saved that. And yeah, a story was told, creepy moments, decent effects. I liked it.
Okay, yeah, it was good. It's just a little, maybe longer than it could have been.
Yeah, a little draggy, but yeah, forgivable. I liked it.
Now, what's next?
Subservience.
Directed by S.K. Dale, written by Will Honley and April McGuire. Stars Megan Fox, Michelle Marone, and Madeline Zima. Hour and 35 minutes. Trailer in the show notes.
Spoiler free.
Spoiler free.
It looks good and is very well made. It also went exactly like we expected at every step. It's entertaining to watch, but it's not super because every step of it was so predictable.
Yes.
It's so well made. I really liked it. I liked every aspect of the
acting is good. Effects, it looks good. It's sharp. The special effects are fine.
Alternate reality that it was set in.
But I swear they took this outline from 6 other robot movies.
Yeah, you could see at every step what was where it was gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well done. Completely unoriginal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick flashes back to when his wife Maggie had a sudden heart attack and goes to the hospital. Now he's raising 2 children alone. We thought she was dead, but no, she comes back later.
They do make you think that, but no, she's just in the hospital.
They go to a robotics show to get a cooking, cleaning, and childcare robot. And you see there's all kinds of different shapes and styles of these robot people.
Yeah, and they're completely humanoid and fully functional, fully intelligent, but they are basically slaves.
Yeah.
They cannot do anything but follow orders.
But that's okay because they're robots.
But they're just robots, so people think this is okay.
The salesman explains how advanced the robots are. Little Isla wanders off and finds the robot she likes in the slavery showroom. They don't call it that.
They don't call it that, but that's what it is.
It's pretty clear from what's going on how this works.
Yeah.
Nick's home life is a jumbled mess, and he's very happy to have more help. Isla names the new robot Alice after a book she's reading. Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland, yeah.
As Nick takes the kids to school, Alice cleans up the entire house. It's all as good as new. She also makes excellent lasagna, which is Isla's favorite, though it's not quite as good as her mom's. Alice gets cut on some glass, and Nick gets to see her in her underwear, and we can see where this is heading. The family and she's got this cut on her leg, and she puts this little bandage over it, then peels the bandage right off, and it's instantly healed.
Yep.
That's a neat repair thing.
Yeah, it is.
The family goes to visit Maggie at the hospital, and she's still not ready to be released. They joke about how hot the new robot is, and Maggie jokes that she's jealous. And they're all joking at this point. We cut to a big high-rise construction project, and Nick and the workers complain about all the construction workers being replaced by robots. Nick is the foreman, so he won't be replaced, but everyone else will starting next week. When he goes home, Alice wants to hear about his problems, and she explains the benefits and efficiencies of android workers, and he really can't argue. They really are better than humans for some things.
Except when nobody has a job, what are they doing for money?
And this is kind of an ongoing theme through the place of everybody's jobs are being taken over by robots.
Yeah, even wait staff, throughout the movie.
You see them everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, construction workers, literally, these robots really are human enough where they can do any human job, and apparently they're cheap enough where that's happening. But then, they don't go into the economics of this. When suddenly nobody has a job, are they doing some kind of universal basic income? They don't mention it.
They don't.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about watching Casablanca, and he learns how to erase her memory on topics so she can watch the movie like she's seeing it from the first time.
Yeah, because she knows all about Casablanca, and she's analyzing it,
She's never really watched
like
it, but she
like
knows.
a robot
yeah.
would, and he wants her to see it like, the first time, and
She's
she
probably
does.
read one of her spoily synopses.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Nick gets a call that Maggie is finally going to have her heart transplant surgery, and then she can come back home.
Yay!
Fearing death, Maggie gives Alice some special instructions about taking care of Nick and the kids. The transplant doesn't arrive due to a storm up north, and that depresses everyone. That night, Nick gets drunk and learns that Alex has a pulse.
Alice.
She then makes his pulse skyrocket.
Uh-oh.
She's fully functional.
She is, yeah.
And things devolve from there.
Yeah, they do.
But if you've ever seen a robot nanny movie, you already know exactly what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the robots, there's not much here that looks futuristic. And this is something that always bothers you.
No, I think it's fascinating how they can do that. It doesn't bother me. I think it's very interesting where they take just one aspect, like the robots, and it's decades away, ahead
And the
of
cars
where
all look the same.
our technology is now.
Computers all look the
It's
same.
like just one aspect of society is super advanced. And there's other movies like that. There was an old Tom Selleck movie, Runaway, where the robots were a lot less humanoid, but robots were incredibly advanced, but nothing else was. I find those interesting.
Well, we've seen this plot before, and there are similarities to many other robots gone bad films. There's not really a lot new here. It's well acted and looks great, but the story is a little cliche at this point. It's good. Not great, but it's entertaining. If you like sci-fi robot movies, it's probably worth seeing, but chances are you've seen something very much like it before.
Yeah, everything about it was well made. And it touches on slavery and free will and capitalism gone too far.
It's definitely got some good sci-fi ideas in it.
It does, yeah.
Okay. Oh, hey, let's switch channels and do a documentary.
Cryptids.
On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Ancients by 2024. Directed by and written by Seth Breedlove. And he's done, if you Google Bigfoot or cryptids on our site, we've done probably at least half a dozen of these things from him. And they're all very good.
Yeah.
This one, however, is 2 hours and 22 minutes long.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah. It's almost like 2 in 1.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff here about the history of Appalachia and the history of Bigfoot. It's almost like two movies that they didn't quite have enough.
And meshed them together.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want a very thorough, in-depth documentary about Bigfoot, there's a lot here.
In the Appalachian history, a lot of Appalachian history of the people there.
Yeah, we'll probably read the whole thing here because there really aren't any spoilers because it's historical and cryptid documentary and it's well made.
It's a documentary, so yeah, there's not a plot line to spoil.
Yeah, it's got lots of lore, stories, and eyewitness reviews, and it's long, but it didn't feel stretched out or too long.
And yet, we remain skeptical.
I still have not seen real Bigfoot.
I haven't either.
What happens?
Well, narrator Seth Breedlove talks about his love of the Appalachians and Gatlinburg. His family's from the area, and he remembers stories his father told him about people of the region, and credits roll. Well, we open at the Breedlove Cemetery, and we see that they do have a long history in the area, And they soon talk about how they heard stories about the boogeyman in the woods. They were all warned about things that might be lurking. And we get some geography and history lessons about the Appalachian Mountains and area. They talk about the many bears in the area. The region is extremely lush, and it easily supports large animals, large predators.
Yeah, they talk about all the food that's available in the area. There's trees and berries and animals, and anything big could just live. You could go out and live in those woods yourself and not have any trouble finding any food, it sounds like.
Big animals can thrive, so could Bigfoot thrive in the Appalachians? Well, Seth interviews local experts that talk about the Sasquatch stories of the area, and there are a lot of them. Some of them are, people there now talking about things they've seen and things their ancestors saw, and then they talk to some indigenous people, and their stories too. And I'm not going to try to talk. They talk about, how do you say this?
Sulkaloo.
Sulkaloo, a kind of giant a hairy giant that lived in the area, according to Cherokee legends. All of the many Indian tribes in the area had names for Bigfoot. He goes way back in their culture. And it was kind of interesting. They were talking about some of the descriptions and names that people long ago used, like a tailless monkey and things like that, because they'd never seen an ape or a gorilla. Or
Native
anything.
Americans had no idea what a gorilla was.
Yeah. So they used various terms that, like, oh yeah, that would kind of make sense for somebody to use that term if they'd never seen an ape. So, well, there's a lot of discussion about wild men and various gorilla-like creatures that live in the woods. Bigfoot, that term didn't actually come around until the 1950s, but the idea has been pretty much around forever. And many people have gone missing in the forest there, and some people tie that into the Bigfoot legends. And they throw in some discussion about some real cases. There was a missing child, Dennis Martin, from the 1960s, and the search for him. He may have been kidnapped, but many people speculate it could have been a Bigfoot. And there's Trenny Gibson and Mike Heron, who were real disappearances that they talk about. And they talk about the possibility of feral people. There's a lot of caves in the area. And not talking about just homeless people, like people that actually live there and have for a long time.
I'm real skeptical about that part.
Yeah, it seems like they would have been spotted by now. But we also meet a bunch of people who tell about their sightings of various Bigfoot-like creatures.
Yeah.
All in all, it's long, but it didn't seem that way. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, well, again, we've seen several movies from this series, but this is certainly the most serious documentary of all the ones we've seen so far.
And I would say it's my favorite of their works.
Me too.
Of the ones I've seen. Yeah.
Some of the movies, some of them that they put out, they interview people that are clearly just flakes. These people are much more serious and believable and, educated.
Yeah, it seems that way, yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
As always, the production values and camera work are excellent. It's half a documentary about Appalachia and half a story of Bigfoot. The two topics combined makes this feel very thorough. Although there are some anecdotes, the people interviewed here all seem honest and believable. Unlike many Bigfoot films, this one is short on flakes and loons. It focuses more on legends and lore than personal stories, which is nice. It stands out mostly due to its length, at almost 2.5 hours. It's long, and it really takes its time. We were 20 minutes in before there was even the first mention of Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of history and well-researched folklore discussed here, and it's not just a bunch of people telling made-up stories of encounters. There are visually many recreations and animations that give us something to look at as the people talk. Due to the length, it's not a quick watch, so I'd probably recommend this one more toward the hardcore cryptid enthusiast, but it's one of the best that we've seen.
Yeah, I'd recommend it if you're into this. I remain skeptical though.
You are such a skeptic.
Well, it's just that everybody's out there with cameras in their pocket now. I'm expecting some better footage by now.
All right, so since we shorted everybody on short films this week, we decided to watch an extra long film, or an extra full-length film. So we squeezed in The Deliverance from 2024. Getting a lot of press on this one lately. Mm-hmm. Directed by Lee Daniels, written by David Cogsall and Elijah Bynum, stars Andra Day, Glenn Close, and Anthony B. Jenkins. Hour 52 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. And this has nothing to do with men in the wilderness or banjos.
Not at all. They live in town in a what is it? A brownstone.
It's a house.
Type place.
Yeah.
It's a house. Yeah, in the city. Well, take a scoop of the Amityville Horror and top it with a squirt of the Exorcist sauce, and you got the foundation of this movie, which is claimed to be based on true events like the Amityville Horror was. It's very well acted, with normal human struggles amplified by supernatural elements. And we thought the story started going downhill as it progressed, and those supernatural elements started being the center of the movie. Brian didn't care much for it. I give it a weak thumbs up.
I thought it was good until the supernatural stuff showed up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. These people, I was really invested in these people and their struggling. And
it was a good drama until it became a horror movie.
She's not a single mom. Dad is away in the military, and but she's struggling, raising several kids, and the grandma's living with them, and she's got health struggles, and I was invested in these people, and then the supernatural stuff creeps in, and I was like,
We've seen The Exorcist. We don't need this.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the father being off in the military. I think that's just something she told the kids.
Oh, was it?
At one point, she said he's off in Iraq.
Yeah.
And we heard that for sure.
Yeah.
But later on, she went to Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or somewhere to be with him. And she said we'd be back. We're getting back together again.
Okay.
Like maybe they had split up because reasons, and she was lying about it.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. It's debatable.
Well, in essence, she's a single mom.
Yeah. Father's not in the picture.
We don't see the dad at all. Yeah.
Well, we see paintings of terrified children as the credits roll.
Yeah, nice.
It's 2011 in Pittsburgh, and little Andre has been working on a mural in his room. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a good painter or something.
I liked that mural. Yeah, that was cool.
We cut to Alberta in church. She's Ebony's mother and Andre's grandmother. Alberta has moved in with them, but she tends to nag about Ebony's cooking. It's all very tense since the father had to go. He's gone. Andre's brother Nate and sister Shantae are old enough to not bring up the topic at the dinner table, but Andre gets smacked for it. I wish Dad was here. Whack.
Yeah.
Well, there's something in the basement that's attracting a lot of flies. Andre is lactose intolerant, but he chugs from the carton like a lunatic. And we're like, why is he doing this?
Well,
we figure it out later.
At that point, yeah, it's the first taste of what's going on.
Ebony is way behind on her bills, and that's going to be a problem later. We see that Ebony drinks too much and has anger issues. When Nate gets bullied, she beats up the kid who did it. Alberta is all religious now, but you can tell she's had a bad past. And now we see that Alberta goes to the clinic for her chemotherapy. She's got cancer. She flirts with Melvin the nurse, but other patients gossip about her. She's behind on her bills as well, and she didn't know that Ebony's been paying for her treatment, which is part of the reason they're always broke. Yeah, they fight they fight terribly, but you can tell that they're actually kind of a close family behind the secrets.
Yes.
Secretly very close.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Ebony argues with Nate, and Andre gets hurt. Nate's been saving money to get away from Ebony and her toxic lifestyle. Then they find a dead cat in the basement. That's what's been stinking so much. Nope, it wasn't the father. I figured it was for a long while.
I wondered, yeah. And that scene, too, there's a pest control guy who comes up, here's your problem. And Ebony's like, well, bill the landlord. And he's like, I need payment now. And she's like, I'm not going to pay $60 for that. And he says, well, I'll put it back then. And the older boy steps up and pays, but for $60, it's, I would go down and, well, go ahead and put it back. Yes,
it's a cat. It's not that messy.
It's a dead cat, yeah.
Well, Cynthia shows up. She's the DCS officer from the Department of Children's Services. And Ebony has moved houses without telling her. She wants to know why Andre and Shantae are all bruised up and in pain because of that fight last night. Ebony is about to lose custody of her kids. They need some stability. Well, Shantae has a birthday party, and most of the characters we've met are there. Alberta and Marvin talk about family dynamics. Yes, she really is Ebony's mother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Andre comes out of the basement.
He asks,
she's white, and nobody else is.
Yeah. And so are you really? And she's my baby. I birthed her.
Andre comes out of the basement and says he's been talking to Trey, who lives down in the basement and also sometimes in his closet. Ebony drinks too much, and their friend Asia gets annoyed and leaves. And Asia has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever. I thought she was going to be a bigger character.
Yeah, I wondered, but no, just a family friend that was there for the party.
Yeah. Alberta hears the kids screaming that night and find that Ebony has terrified them in a drunken rage. She threw us against the wall, says Andre. Ebony denies doing anything, or at least she doesn't remember.
Yeah, she kind of blacked out.
The next day at school, all three kids behave badly, very badly, and end up in the hospital for examinations. The hospital administrator can't find anything wrong with the kids other than those bruises. All right, we'll probably stop there.
Yeah, we probably should.
Bad things happen.
Bad things happen. The devil at work. Or is it?
Well, we went into this one blind, other than hearing about how good it was from some other reviews. For the first almost hour, I wasn't sure really where it was going.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Yeah, and then we found out.
Yeah.
Much to our disappointment.
It kinda, yeah.
I want to know how they managed to convince Glenn Close to do this. She was really good here as her character. And then they...
stuff happens to her, too.
Stuff happens to her, yeah.
Yeah. No, I can see why this would appeal to her.
Oh, as far as acting, yeah, that's quite a role there.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like Glenn Close that you've seen before.
Nope.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, it may not be a huge spoiler at this point to say that it's an exorcism film. Mm-hmm. The kids are possessed, or somebody's possessed at various times.
Devilry at work, yeah.
And as soon as the exorcism stuff started, it all went downhill fast, in my opinion. And the very ending just seemed like a Christian propaganda film. It's all good if you got God.
The very ending did, yeah.
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 Now, overall, it could have been very good. It was very good for the first hour.
Yeah, the cast is so good in this, and they're so good together.
Overall, I think the movie was not very good.
Yeah.
The ending just murdered it.
Sadly, and that's what it's supposed to be all about.
They exorcised all the quality out.
That was my least favorite part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all in all, a weak thumbs up, but yeah, not a strong one.
Yeah, it was not a bad film, but we have seen The Exorcist before,
and various exorcism type movies. And,
yeah.
I
mean, but you go back to The Exorcist. You had an expert exorcist priest and the young priest to assist him, and they worked for days and couldn't get the demon out of that demon in the Exorcist movie.
Yeah.
This one here is just a woman with a vial of holy water and belief. It's all it takes.
And then it ends up being even less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, doesn't care for it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. What do we have? Clawfoot, good. Zombie Wedding, good. Voice of Shadows, okay. Subservience, okay. Trail of Bigfoot, good. And the Deliverance, What do you think?
Well, I'm going to stick with Clawfoot being my favorite of the week, overall. For overall entertainment value, I'm going to go with Clawfoot.
I think long term, the one I'm going to remember the most is probably the Zombie Wedding.
Okay. Yeah, I found.
I mean, yeah, it was silly,
forgettable.
But it was good. I liked it.
Okay.
And
Subservience, I wish was a little more original because it was so well done.
It could have been much better, yes, but it was good in all the check boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, overrated. I'm going to go with Deliverance. It was not that great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, next week we will have more movies and more shorts and back to our normal format with probably fewer indie films.
Okay.
But I bet we have some.
Because it's the Halloween season coming up.
Everybody's sending us their films because it's that time of year again.
Yeah, it is.
Which is good. We like seeing the indie films. We like to see all the films.
And generally we do enjoy that.
Generally,
not
yes.
always, but yeah.
Every once in a while, we'll get one that we like. Oh my God, we can't review this.
Once in a while, we get one where we like, and I'm not.
We got one just this past week.
I'm not going to rip on an indie movie.
Yeah,
and
we're like, this is so bad.
We can't say nice things about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We got one this past week I didn't even want to sit through.
Yeah.
So did you.
Yeah.
You're like, This
Yeah.
looks terrible.
Yeah, but we get a lot of them offered, and yeah.
Not to say we won't say bad things about your movie,
Well,
but if it's so bad we can't sit through it, we probably
or,
won't.
if we can't say something good about it, yeah. So,
All right, well, that is it for this week. Stop in over at HorrorGuys.com, HorrorWeekly.com, HorrorMonthly.com, HorrorGuysPodcast.com, HorrorGuysBooks.com. I'm sensing a pattern here.
yeah, I'm thinking you are.
We're everywhere. Go to HorrorMonthly.com and follow some links from there. It might be the simplest way to do it. Until next week, then, I am Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we will be next week, too, though.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, see ya.
See ya.